So the next great leap forward in the evolutionary history of plants was seeds. So we had vascular tissues, we had sporophyte dominance, and gametophytes getting smaller and smaller. So seeds are very different from spores. Spores are very simple to make. They don't require a lot of energetic resources, but they don't have a lot of provisions with them. So once they go out and get dispersed into the world, a lot of them are not going to make it. They start off as a single cell that is capable of producing all the other structures within a plant. So we say that that cell is totipotent. Seeds, however, are multicellular. You already have an embryonic plant with all of its organs and tissue systems developed within inside. You have a whole new sporophyte within the seed, surrounded by nutrition and protected from the environment. So it might be protected by the seed coat. In addition, it might have other structures that help it to disperse, like a wing or a surrounding ovary tissue that an animal might want to eat. So here we can see a bunch of examples of different kinds of seeds. Seeds are as diverse as the plants that produce them. And here at Auburn, we often like to say that a seed is a baby in a lunchbox. And by that, we mean that there is an embryonic plant, which is the baby, comprised of cotyledons, an epicotyl, which grows into the stem, a hypocotyl, which grows into the lower stem, and the radicle, which grows into the root. Radicle means little root. There's the food source, which is endosperm, and then there is a seed coat. So in this picture here of a bean seed, the cotyledons are kind of hard to resolve because in beans, the seed leaves are actually attached to the endosperm. But the cotyledons usually we would find in this area here as part of this embryonic plant, and the endosperm would be indicated by this space in here. So gymnosperms are naked seed plants. We've got 4 phyla that are around today. They have the shared ancestral characteristic of having vascular tissue. And all vascular plants have a dominant sporophyte or diploid generation, but gymnosperms can be even larger than our seedless vascular plants. At least today, all of our extant gymnosperms are larger than seedless vascular plants. The gametophyte generation, which was dominant in non-vascular plants and often hidden in the seedless vascular plants, has become even smaller and is dependent upon the sporophyte. And in order to have seeds, we have to have heterospore. We have to have big spores and little spores in order for there to be seeds. These are the 4 extant phyla: the Gnetophyta, Ginkgophyta, Cycadophyta, and Coniferophyta. So Ginkgophyta, a lot of people get confused on how to spell it, so I tell them to remember that the gink will go to fight. You don't have a ging that coes. Coing is not a thing to do. So if you have to remember the order of the K and the G here, which is the thing that trips a lot of people up, then remember ginks go. Within the phylum Gnetophyta, it's a very interesting assemblage of disparate-looking plants. We've got things like Welwitschia here that grows in the Namib Desert in southern Africa. Needham looks an awful lot like a flowering plant tree with its broad leaves and the seeds that have a red fleshy seed coat that look kind of like fruits, but they're not. And then Ephedra, which kind of looks like just a bunch of sticks, but also adapted for very dry conditions. But this is found not in Africa, but in Asia and in the southwestern U.S. So here's some representative samples of Needham. And you can see that we've got these seeds here that have a red fleshy seed coat. Those are not fruits. That's the seed coat that contains the seed, not ovary tissue, which would be a true fruit. Over here we have got, this is a branch of Needham, which was pounded to free up the fibers, and then the fibers can be used to make rope. So that's one of the uses for Needham in some parts of the world. Welwitschia is found along this large area here. Even though it's along the Atlantic coast, it's a very, very dry habitat, some of the driest desert in the world, very limited rainfall. And its name in Afrikaans is, I can't tell you what that says or pronounce that properly, but it means two-leaf cannot die. Because Welwitschia has these two leaves emerging from either side of this underground stem here. Morning dew can collect under these leaves, and it rolls back under to provide water to the roots. And that's just enough water to keep this plant growing. It can grow for a very, very long time, on the order of centuries. Ephedra is a bit larger as a genus, many more species, more widely distributed. We even have this in the southwestern U.S. It produces these type of seeds with fleshy coats on them, but they look more or less like a bunch of sticks. Very reduced in their leaves, and Ephedra is the source of a stimulant, ephedrine, which pseudoephedrine is used as a decongestant, and it's also a stimulant, and people have used it for weight loss, although it's been associated with causing heart problems associated with taking stimulants. Within the Ginkgophyta, we have only one species left, which is Ginkgo biloba. It's often called the maidenhair tree because in the fall, when it's about to lose its leaves, they go from green to a nice sort of golden hue. They are deciduous, as I just suggested, because they lose their leaves in the fall. The branches have dichotomous venation. All the veins radiate out from a single point, so it appears that like they fork from that central point. I'll show you a picture in a minute. They have dwarf branches, so if you look at a stem, you'll see that the leaves and seeds are produced from these little dwarf branches. They're also dioecious, meaning that they have separate male and female individual trees. And they have these bilobed leaves. They kind of look like the flukes of a whale. The leaf extract is marketed as a memory enhancer, and the seeds have a fleshy, smelly seed coat that's kind of reminiscent of, it's not a very good smell. Some folks think it smells like dog feces. So here you can see one of those dog feces seeds. It's not in a ripened ovary, so it's not a fruit, and that fleshy part on the outside is the seed coat. Here you can see some of these bilobed leaves. Here's a lobe, and here's a lobe. You can see the veins radiating out from a single focal point, kind of fan-shaped. And they're emerging from these little dwarf branches here, just little tiny spurs of branches that can bear the leaves and the seeds. Cycads are gymnosperms that are also dioecious, having separate male and female plants. Typically they're fairly short. They can be up to a meter tall if they get to be very old, but most of them are very short, just maybe a meter or so off the ground. And being dioecious, they have microsporangiate strobili and megasporangiate strobili, or clusters of spore-producing leaves. And cycads have been found to have an ancient association with beetles that may feed on the pollen cones, and when they go from one cycad to the next, they don't always know whether they're getting into a male or a female, so they may inadvertently pollinate the female megasporangiate strobilus. And this is thought to be a very early version of zoophily, or animal pollination, spreading pollen from a male plant to a female plant. These are examples of cycads in here. As you can see, they look kind of sort of like palm trees a bit. They also kind of look a little bit like ferns. These in the back here, these are true conifers. Those aren't cycads. But here, 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 those are all cycads. And here's a cycad with a megasporangiate strobili. There's a couple of them in here. And here is another example of a cycad with 3 megasporangiate strobili. A whole bunch of these leaves emerging from the stem. The Coniferophyta is our largest extant phylum of gymnosperms. It includes many of our most familiar tree species and genera: pines, firs, spruces, redwood, sequoia, larch. Lots and lots of diversity around today from the Coniferophyta. These are the cone-bearing trees. Conifers are champions. So the oldest plant in the world, one of the oldest known organisms across the board, is a bristlecone pine, which you can see it looks kind of like it's pretty old. It looks like it's dead, but it's actually not. This is a bristlecone pine found in the White Mountains of eastern California. The biggest is giant sequoia, Sequoiadendron giganteum, which isn't the tallest, but has the most massive trunk. So the height times the breadth of the trunk, the girth of the trunk, the diameter of the trunk makes it the biggest plant species. And then the tallest is our coast redwood, which can be almost up to 300 feet tall, or about 100 meters tall. It's not as broad as the giant sequoia, but a little bit taller. So imagine cutting down a tree that's on your goal line in a football game and having the top of it land in the other team's end zone. That's how tall coast redwood can grow to be. And as far as how large the largest animal is, a blue whale would only be about 1/3 the length of the tallest redwood. So take 3 blue whales, the largest animal on Earth, in fact ever, to equal the height of 1 coast redwood. A lot of different terms for our life cycle in the Coniferophyta. So I'm going to close this video with this slide and start here in the next one.